calling to order the Needham Select Board meeting of October 10th, 2023. I just want to start this evening with a personal comment. I know that we are holding this meeting in the backdrop of yet another seemingly war going on in our world. And I do note that in that environment that I believe firmly, and I don't speak for the board, that both Israel and Palestinians have the right to live peacefully, but none of us can condone acts of terror on civilians. And that is horrific to watch and to learn about, and I hope that they find some resolution to that soon. All right, we have public comment this evening. I've not been notified of any public comment, but if there is anybody here or on Zoom.
So you don't have to raise your hand, sure.
Okay.
All right, then we can move to our first agenda item, which is to introduce. I do not want to murder your last name the very first time I say it, so I can say JP, yes. But I'm going to ask you to help us understand. We are delighted to have you here, but let me turn it to Katie so you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am thrilled to introduce one of our newest Team Needham members, JP Kachalia.
Yes.
Yes. All right. He is our incoming economic development manager. And so we were fortunate enough, of course, to have Amy Halison in that role, promoted her to our communications and community engagement director. We're thrilled to have JP. His resume is in your packet, but I'll say he has 15 years of being an economic development director in the city of Woodhaven, Michigan, which is outside of Detroit. When he was going through the interview process, some of the things that jumped out the most at me, very collaborative, working with business and community leaders, residents, different various city departments. He had a lot of experience with that. Also about an ability to establish and run a strategic plan. So from his community, there was a set plan with vision and goals, and there was ongoing kind of accountability for it. So I think we'll look forward to all of the things we want to achieve for economic development here in Needham. And also his big picture approach to economic development. So he talked a lot about engaging with the business community, but also how does housing and transportation and all of our other goals kind of feed into the quality of life here in the business climate. So I am thrilled to have JP. We always try to say something fun also. He loves to ski and travel. And yeah, welcome to town.
Yes, I'm very excited to be here. Pleasure to serve you all and the residents of Needham.
That's good. We're delighted to have you here. You are closer to better skiing than you were.
Yes.
I'll note it's still not perfect here in New England. There's better areas farther from both of us. Yes. And we are so excited that you're here because Amy did an amazing job for us. Your challenge is that by the end of the week, every merchant in town should know your name and your face, just to let you know. And your role is critical because for all the reasons Katie mentioned and that you've talked about and lived, that economic development is one piece of an overall puzzle, and it's a system and it works together. And we need all those parts to be vibrant, and it's important that you do that.
Exactly. I'm looking forward to it. Amy loves some big shoes to fill, so.
Still around.
Comments from the board?
You know, I think it's great too that you'll bring some expertise from another region. And, you know, I'm thinking you probably have some ideas that we've never heard of, and that's great.
Yeah.
Agreed. Looking forward to working with you and serving together. So
Right.
happy that you're here
Thank
with
you.
us. Yeah.
Thank you. I hope you're not put off by a warm nature. You know,
I will say this. People in the Midwest are, I should say this, people from Michigan and Massachusetts I've found very similar in their personalities. It's when you get farther to the Midwest, there's almost a fake niceness, and I could go into the description that I've heard of kindness versus niceness, so.
yeah,
So did nice.
Yes.
you're welcome to do.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
I think people here tend to let you know how they feel.
Yes.
What we find, and for the most part, I say all the time that people are really grateful for the service of everybody in the town, and I'm sure you will experience that as well. Doesn't mean we're all perfect. We're all trying
Okay.
to do our best. Thank you.
Everybody's perfect in their own way.
Sometimes,
Or
yes.
or that's
At
what
one
they
moment.
think.
Excellent. Great.
you.
Thank you so much. We look forward to working with you. All right, the next item on our agenda, not on the agenda, but it looks like it is the sale of bonds and notes. So we will welcome Mr. Davison and Ms. Harvey. And we see that our town clerk is here to observe that we are doing this of our own free will without being
No
coerced.
coercement in any way.
Madam Chair, as noted, the board's actually here to approve the sale of a note. There are no bonds at this time. The purpose of this note is to basically renew the short-term bond that note that we have that matures on October 16th. It's a bond anticipation note for $3,060,000. And when that matures, we're going to be paying down a portion of that note, and we'll use the proceeds from this sale to pay off the balance. The ban will continue until July 30th of 2024. At that time, I anticipate that we'll be issuing a bond, which will be inclusive of these two projects, additional borrowing associated with these two projects, and perhaps some of the other authorizations, projects town meeting has approved that we have not yet begun. The sale was very successful. Interest rates are creeping up. We've mentioned that the last couple of times. It's also still true, but they're still favorable when you look over a 40-year timeline, but they are high in comparison for the last several years. The interesting thing is the higher cost, although they're still lower than the long-term bonds, but the cost for short-term money is more expensive comparatively to other short-term loans a few years ago, whereas long-term bonds, and we're talking 10 years, 20 years, have not accelerated as much as in comparison to the bonds of several years ago. And with that, Madam Chair, we'll take questions that you may have.
Thank you, Dave. I do, every time I look at the interest rate, and I know that when you do forecasts, right, they're conservative. We have not yet reached the Dave Davison conservative level of those forecasts, but we're closer than we've been during my entire tenure, and I think almost most of my tenure on the school committee as well. So it is interesting to see where they are. Are there questions from the board?
Yeah, just give it, all right, so this is paying off part of Emery Grover renovation, correct?
The CPA portion, correct.
Okay, and then the two water projects?
Correct.
Distribution, okay.
And water service
And
connection.
water service connections, okay. Is that the lead project?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Okay. And this is a normal part of how we would do business. So, working favorably. No other questions? If there are no other questions, then I would welcome a motion. We actually have a series of motions that are lengthy.
All right, I'll take the first one. Motion A. I move to approve the sale of 2,282,000 4% general obligation bond anticipation notes of the town dated October 16, 2023, and payable to July 30th, 2024. The notes to Fidelity Capital Markets, a division of National Financial Services LLC, at par and accrued interest, if any, plus a premium of $2,418.92.
Oh, motion B. Oh, go ahead.
We can actually do all of the motions at once and vote them as a set. So if somebody else wants to read the next one, maybe we'll just continue going down the line.
And I move that the select board moves that in connection with the marketing and sale of the notes, the preparation of the distribution of notice and sale and preliminary official statement dated September 20th, 2023, and a final official statement dated September 27th, 2023, each in such form as may be approved by the town treasurer, be and hereby ratified, confirmed, approved, and adopted.
And further move that the town treasurer and the select board be and hereby are authorized to execute and deliver a significant events disclosure undertaking in compliance with SEC Rule 15C2-12 in such a form as may be approved by bond counsel to the town, which undertaking shall be incorporated by reference in the notes for the benefit of the holders of the notes from time to time.
I move that we authorize and direct the town treasurer to establish post-issuance federal tax compliance procedures and continuing disclosure procedures in such forms as the town treasurer and bond counsel deem sufficient. Or if such procedures are currently in place, to review and update said procedures in order to monitor and maintain the tax exempt status of the notes and to comply with relevant securities laws.
Motion E. I move that the certificates or documents relating to the notes, collectively the documents, may be executed in several counterparts, each of which shall be regarded as an original and all of which shall constitute one and the same document. Delivery of an executed counterpart of a signature page to a document by electronic mail in a PDF file or by other electronic transmission shall be as effective as delivery of a manually executed counterpart signature page to such document. And electronic signatures on any of the documents shall be deemed original signatures for the purposes of the documents and all matters relating hereto having the same legal effect as original signatures.
Madam Chair, Mr. Nelson, you don't have to say the T.
Okay, I saw that. I was gonna move past it, just move to that. Furthermore, move that each member of the select board, the town clerk, and the town treasurer be and hereby are authorized to take any and all such actions and execute and deliver such certificates, receipts, or other documents as may be determined by them or any of them to be necessary and convenient to carry into effect the provisions of the foregoing votes.
And a second for all the motions?
Second.
So this is, as we were talking about things to sign, in the old days, there would have been stacks, right? And so we should all be grateful for electronic signatures because
There
that
are
would be.
some
There are
live
physical
signatures.
Okay, yeah. So there will be a few, good. Any other questions, comments, discussion?
I would just like to make a comment. Obviously, thank you for all of this work. This represents a great deal of yearly work. But I also want to mention to those who may be watching, especially those town meeting members who may be newish, that the information contained in this portion of the packet is really, really fascinating and instructive on how this town works. It makes for, somewhat dry, but really good reading. And if you have the chance, especially as town meeting is coming up, it'd be worth an extra peek under the hood.
You will be able to find out why the town's bond rating is what it is.
Thank you very much for doing this. It's a lot of work.
Great. Coming into the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? 5-0. So you can let us know what we actually have to sign. Thank
Yes,
you.
there is the physical note, the one note that will be held.
Thank you.
Safekeeping. There is also a tax certificate, which is basically attesting that bond counsel, based upon the statements made by the town, that official statement that Ms. Frail just made reference to is accurate, and that the town is issuing this note exempt from federal income taxes. It also makes assumptions that we have to ensure that these borrowed monies are not going to be used for-profit operations. So not more than 5% of the dollars or the square footage of a building could be dedicated to for-profit purposes. Now, of course, one would say, well, of course, that's not going to happen. But if you get into the business of entering with third parties to run programs, or if you were to outsource your food lunch program, that's a private concern. So those are the sort of things. Or if you were to be leasing rooftops to for-profit solar companies. That also can be a problem. You can rest assured, the way that the town has structured its solar panels does not run afoul, just to put that fear to rest, does not run afoul of the regulations. And then the other document, of course, attests that there is no material litigation with the town, which there is not. And materiality would mean that a case that if there was an adverse opinion would put the town's financial position in a bad position, which it would not.
Yes, clerk, this is the only one that you individually will sell. It's just authorizing the vote that was just taken tonight. Thank you.
Hopefully we will have found everything.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Very much.
Thank you to the town clerk for coming this evening as well. That's right. And carry on. All right, the next item on our agenda is a public hearing, an application for transfer of all alcohol license from Latina Group LLC, doing business as Latina Kitchen and Bar. That's been continued from September 26th. So if a team would come forward and introduce themselves. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, how are
Tom
you?
Griffin.
Hi, Tom.
Scott McCoy.
Scott.
Well, Madam Chair, thank you so much for hearing us. Ted Conley. And thank you for continuing the hearing till tonight. We're very excited to be here, and I just want to introduce, this will be the two managers of the restaurant. Tom Griffin will be the manager of record, and Scott McCourt. And we're all Needham residents, and I don't want to bore you with any of my talk, so I'm going to hand it over to Scott to give a quick description.
Yeah, so I'll actually ask you, do you want us to give you a quick overview or
So we
take
would like
questions, or-
a quick overview of what your plan is.
Okay,
Yes.
great. So as you know, Latina is an existing restaurant, so we're looking for the transfer of existing licenses. We're not going to make many changes to the building itself. The only changes we're really going to make is we're going to put a wall between the kitchen and the dining room. That's really, it was set up to be more of a sort of a chef experience, which is not what we're going for. So we're going to quiet it down a little bit, give us some more wall space, and create more of a dining area. Everything else we're basically going to keep the same. We're obviously going to change the cuisine. So one of the reasons we're doing this is, we all grew up in Needham, and so I have a family of 5, I have 3 kids, and Needham has a great restaurant scene, many cuisines. Oftentimes you say, let's go out, and what's the next question? Okay, what are we going to have? And nobody can agree on anything. So, we think there's a space for a restaurant that will kind of bring, an American cuisine, with nod to international flavors. So we're going to have salads, steak, chicken. We'll have some tacos, Italian. So we're going to have something basically for everybody. So we're looking for that. The second thing we think is the decor and the atmosphere. So we want it to be that welcoming place. We want it to be of the town. It's why we're calling it the Common Room. So we're obviously riffing off the fact that it's right by the Common. But we want it, the decor is going to have, we're going to have some stuff from Needham. So we're thinking, Needham High. We're thinking, we want to have maybe some sports paraphernalia from the Big Four, professional teams, signed by someone who's lived in Needham, longtime Needham resident. So you can think of some of those folks. So really connect the town with what we're doing. We, maybe have some art, not originals, of course, but say an NC Wyeth on the wall, that kind of thing. A lot of people don't realize the connection there to the town. So we think with that, we want it to be the place that's naturally where you would want to go. We have connections. Again, we all grew up here. Connections to the police and fire. My wife works for the town. She works in the schools. So we think it's going to be. We think we can make it the gathering place where it's naturally where you would say, hey, what's the place I can go get great food, and in a welcoming environment. So that's our plan.
Okay, good. So we've heard a couple of different things. One was sort of this family gathering kind of concept. We had also heard about a sports bar. We have a little bit of concern about that tension because if you live in Needham, you know our history, right? Having come from being a dry town. I want to say in that sense, I don't think we're like other towns. We're still very careful about that. And we take where our alcohol licenses are quite seriously. And frankly, I will say to you tonight, and I hope I never have to see you because of a compliance issue. But that is a very important factor for us. And we've recently changed our regulations actually to make them stricter. So I'm hoping that you all understand that.
It's very important to us too, because we don't want to, we have other things going on in our life too, which this is something we enjoy doing. It's not necessarily something we have to do. So we don't want to take any unnecessary risks. We want to have a very safe environment for everyone. And we want to really bring the community into that. And we plan on doing, Scott already mentioned a lot of the stuff, but at another restaurant I'm involved with, we do like a community Friday buffet. So like people that work for the town, the fire, the police, the teachers can all come, get some buffet, sit around, everybody gets to meet each other, get to know each other better, and it just strengthens the community. And that's what we're looking to do. We're not looking to, it's not so much about like packing the place up and having some crazy nights. Needham closes pretty early, so that would be a very bad business model if that's what you were looking to do.
I think early on, the sports bar thing came out as something we were kicking around in concept, and it's not what we're doing. We do think it will be a great place to watch the game, but it's not primarily what we want to do. We want it to be more of that welcoming. When you walk in, it's you feel at home, you feel a connection. It's a place you can go alone and meet somebody and have conversations. It's a place you bring your family, and it's a place where you can bring that. Let's say you have we have once a month we meet after work. With local businesses, and as Tom mentioned, police and fire. We've got great connections with them. We want people to think that this is the place we go to gather. So that's really the concept. And also, as I mentioned, I still have two of my kids in the high school, so safety is important, and we appreciate that. And you're not ever going to see us in here for a compliance issue.
So I hope that that's the case. Marcus?
I had two questions. Just riffing off the idea about the once a month having town employees and things like that. Is that something you plan on doing here, or is
Absolutely, yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Our success in the other place was based on, it's right after COVID, we had a lot of extra food, and instead, rather than throwing it out, we started just cooking up everything extra and sending it off to the police and the fire. And then as we started to open up again, we did something so people felt safe coming back in. Couldn't obviously do the buffets at first because we were all still masked up, but we just did things and it slowly had built it up, and the community became part of our success. So we want guidance from the community as much as anything else.
I like that idea. And then the second question I had, as far as compliance, and I guess what is going to be in place to proactively make sure we don't see you for anything other than a good meal?
We're going to follow all the guidelines that you guys set forth, and we're going to be even stricter than that. We don't want anything coming back on us personally, too. You got to remember, we want a safe environment. We want to have a nice place. The common room, like you said, riffs on the Needham Common, but it also, the common room in the house is where people come and gather and feel safe, watch a game. It's that type of atmosphere. It's like everybody knowing each other and enjoying their time together.
We'll have the technology in place.
That's what I was
like the IDs, so we'll have
I have
that.
a
We're all
system
TIPS certified.
I have a place that scans, goes right to the registry, scans
Okay.
everything.
Right,
But I
So
will
that is
speak-
actually a requirement.
right. So
So-
following all that really is
Yeah.
going to keep you in compliance. And again, we know that I still have two kids in the high school, and I have one college-age kid. So no one's going to be able to walk in with, we know who you are. So we're fairly confident that we'll be able to handle that.
The last
to a
two
T.
places Ted and I, well, last place Ted and I was at, a lot of college BC kids would go to, and trust me, I don't want that headache of like underage kids trying to get in, or even kids of age that are in there power drinking, and that's just not what we're looking for. That's not the environment.
Yeah, that's not needed.
So we give you permission to card everybody.
Yeah.
We say this to everybody who comes
Like getting
in.
carded.
I mean, there are cultures that do card everybody and nobody gets offended, and it hasn't been New England, but we'd be happy if we had a culture of
Yeah.
that in Eden. Any comments?
No, I just wanted to, there were a couple of pieces of your application at the very end of your application that looked like, I just want to confirm that they were you signing your shares, an ownership share in Union Street?
It was
away?
Union
Was
Street,
that-
yes.
Okay.
Ted and I were owners there, but we got out about 6 months ahead of when they started having issues. We just, it wasn't what we were thinking we wanted to do. That was, like I was speaking to, was a lot of young college kids coming. It was just kind of a crazy environment. So our partners were great. They did the best of what they could do, but that's not the type of place we're looking for. So we had actually gotten out, and then we should have followed up because they never actually pulled us off. And then it went out of business. So the license now is gone, so we can't correct the license now. We've been talking to Town of Newton to try to fix this. So Ted actually is the attorney. He's the one who's been.
What has been the response when you've
Right,
tried to
well,
do that?
What happened is, we were minority. I mean, I was a silent minority, and Tom was a little more involved, but we wanted to get out, and we attached those just to show that, to our knowledge, that's what happened. And I actually have an interest in a brewery in Norwood, a small interest. And this didn't come up, that we were still on the liquor license for Union Street. So we had no idea, because it was the understanding that they would take us off with the next renewal, because all owners of a restaurant have to report to the ABCC. And it was the same licensing attorney, so I assumed it had been done. I mean, I'm kidding on me for not following up and calling, but so nothing that we knew went on in there. We were completely gone. I haven't stepped in there since July 2020.
So can I follow up on that then? Are you still pursuing that liquor license? It sounds like you're looking to reinvigorate that one.
Oh, no, we have nothing to do with it. We've been gone that was the law before. Go ahead, sir.
So where I'm pursuing now is that it was revoked. So what happened is the landlord foreclosed on them, and no one appeared at a hearing for the cancellation of the license.
Sure.
What I've spoken to them, they're still friends, and they said that they went to the license, I think it's the health department, and they said that they were canceling the license. But they never followed, the health department said they never followed up on the email. And there was a hearing, nobody showed up on Zoom, so they revoked it, which normally would be a cancellation, because it wasn't revoked for anything they'd done wrong, except that they didn't show to the hearing. So my understanding is the licensing attorney is filed or has filed or is filing a motion to reconsider the revocation, so it becomes a cancellation. Because it's no longer, they had an auction of all the equipment inside.
And you've been talking about your other place. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I'm in the process of actually being bought out of the other place.
Okay.
Because I'm going to focus just on this. I think Needham's a little bit more of what I'm looking for community-wise.
That's what I wanted to know. If you're going to be the manager of record here, I just wanted to make sure that you were going to be
Yeah,
focused
and
here.
it's a process that I basically getting month by month out of there. So
Okay.
hopefully soon.
I like the idea. It sounds great.
Thanks.
I wish you every success. Just, the cautionary tale of Union Street, I hope that's way in the background.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to hear that you want to leave it in the background too.
Yeah, we were not part of Union Street at that point.
Yes.
Union Street had no violations or any fines when we were there. There was a lot of bumping heads to keep it that way, and then it's just a good time to move on. So we moved on.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, so there's a couple of other partners in the business. Can you just tell us something about the people who are not here tonight who are also involved and what their real involvement is?
Right.
Some of it's monetary, it's not clear how or some of it's
Actually,
some
there-
other way.
Most of them are going to, Dave Degani, who's going to be a partner, has been in business for 15 years on his own, but he's been in the business his whole life. His parents owned Cafe Dante, and it's now Club Dante in Brookline, which is, by the way, a little plug for Dave. If you guys are ever in Brookline, the food's unbelievable. So he's going to really run the back end, the kitchen part of things. Tons of experience, very talented guy. Then there's the three of us. I'm not so talented, but we're hoping to be someday. And then we actually have Heather, who is a partner in a business in Needham that does like cabinets and stuff like that. So
Wayland Kitchens.
Wayland Kitchens, yeah.
So they're gonna do the build out.
she's going to help with that. So she's more like she's a partner, she'll be in the meetings, but not a day-to-day person. The day-to-day is going to mostly be myself, Scott, and Dave.
Dave, the back end.
And then
Ted, of course, is our attorney.
Not day to day.
he's not day-to-day, he'll just weekly tell us everything we're doing wrong.
Well, that's an important role,
Yeah, yes.
flagging that.
I've now seen a lot of restaurants from the back end, so I have a good grasp on them.
Okay. Any other questions? I appreciate your taking the time to redo your application and go through it again. It felt like there were a lot of things that were not quite tied up last time, and we had some questions.
We had
So-
submitted originally a sort of a placeholder application, and then the stuff that we were catching up with didn't make it into the packet, essentially is what happened there. The lease wasn't signed and things
Right.
like that, which was already signed and everything. We just, it didn't make it into that. We should have checked.
Document.
We
Yeah.
appreciate you giving us this
Yeah.
second chance.
Okay. It is, yep. So this is a public hearing. I don't know if there are members of the public here tonight or online to speak to this matter. Anybody online? Anybody in the room? It was noticed and went to all the abutters. And of course, people in town have already heard about it a little bit in the Observer.
I've been noticing online.
Yeah, we've got a lot of feedback.
Try not to say anything, because
Yeah.
to figure out where we're going to end up, but
All right, if there are no further questions, then I would welcome a motion at this time.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the Section 12 restaurant all alcohol beverages license transfer application submitted by Latina AA Group, or Latin AA Group, LLC, doing business as Latina Kitchen and Bar, including the appointment of Thomas Griffin as manager of record, and if so approved, forward the application to the ABCC for review and final approval.
Second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? 5-0.
Great.
So we wish you the best. We're going to miss Latina. And Latina
are
has a
too.
lot of fans.
I love the food.
In
Antonio's
town.
great.
And I hope Antonio finds something else new, wonderful to do here. That would be terrific.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, we got big shoes to fill, and hopefully we do.
Yeah.
He's a great guy.
And he's
forward to
been a
coming
great
over
member
for a
of our
meal.
community, so I hope
That's-
that
We
you
look forward to
also.
seeing everybody there.
That's what we're
as well.
hoping to do, yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, hopefully soon.
There.
Thank you, Ken.
There you go.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Hope to see you soon.
Sounds good.
I mean, an unofficial.
Yeah. Or a meal, yeah.
Yes. Let us know.
Okay.
Okay, it is officially after 6:30, which means that the next item on our agenda is a public hearing for the opt-in specialized energy code. And so maybe if Katie and Joe would join us, and we'll leave a central,
Yeah, we
like,
can
kind of open
come
for
down here.
members of the public, since we have a number of members of the public here this evening. So this optimized, or the special opt-in opt-in specialized energy code is something that the select board's been talking about for a couple of weeks. We have seen a presentation, and maybe I'll let Katie just summarize some of the places where we've been with the presentation and the steps that we've taken leading to this. But this is actually leading to potentially, after board discussion, to bringing a vote to town meeting at the end of October. So
Great, thanks, Madam Chair. We first came to you at your September 12th meeting and presented with a representative from the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources on what is the specialized opt-in energy code. Stephen Frail, the chair of the Climate Action Plan Committee, joined us for that, talked about the work of the Climate Action Plan and how this aligns with those goals. Since then, we held an info session. It was geared towards building professionals, architects, contractors, the like. We had about 30 folks, half in the room, half on Zoom for that, and we did open it up more broadly to the public, but I would say the majority of the folks in the room were building professionals. So Joe went through the building code and also changes that had happened recently to the stretch code, just to bring some clarity to what had changed under the existing energy code that we have, and then how the specialized code is different, and that really is the question before a town meeting. We also presented at the Finance Committee, and I think the only other update of note is 2 other communities since in the last couple of weeks have adopted the specialized code. So now it's up to 20, Northampton and Worcester joined. So Joe and I are here just as supporting characters. This really is a public hearing for you all to hear from folks so that you have that input before we get to town meeting.
So I do want to say this is not, because it's a public hearing, it's not something where we're usually commenting back or engaging in a discussion. We're really here to hear feedback from people so that we can take input that will inform a board discussion about this, a further board discussion. And so I think with that, I would open the floor. When people come forward, we would ask you, I don't think I have a timer, so I'm going to rely on my phone, right? But we would ask that you keep your comments to under 3 minutes, okay? We would ask that you give your name and hopefully your address or your business affiliation. It's helpful for us to understand kind of where you are in the community. And if you have comments that are similar to comments that have already been made, then being concise and just sort of dittoing those comments is helpful. We don't need to remake the exact same comments. We will register that you're supportive of what's been said in both a positive or a negative light. And we could have all kinds of aspects to comments. Okay, so with that, I'll open the floor. Come on up.
Come on down.
Well, I'll be very brief. I'm Matt Lockwood Mulaney. I live at 20 Mayo Avenue. I have since I moved here from Quincy about probably 13, 14 years ago when my daughter was entering kindergarten, moved to Needham for good schools and ready access to employers, Metro West, North, South. I'm currently the CFO at a healthcare organization called Community Care Cooperative, a nonprofit. I'm a big fan of adopting this, would love to see it happen. I see a lot of new construction around town where people have obviously put in a lot of money to make a really nice building, and seems like a shame to lose the opportunity to make it more energy efficient as well. So that's really all I have to say. I really hope we adopt this. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
On up, Hardy.
Thank you. I'm Crocker. I live at 17 Fremont Street in Needham, and I wanted to talk about something that came about maybe 2 weeks ago. And I wanted to alleviate people's concern of what's going on here. So this is an opt-in stretch code that's been vetted by the state to get us to a point where we need to go. Now, why build buildings today that aren't as efficient as they can be when they're going to be around for 20, 50 years. So one thing that happened at the Finance Committee meeting, there was a question of, well, if it's the right thing to do, why aren't we making it mandatory for the state? Why is it opt-in? Why don't we just make it so every town has to do it? Well, what came about was I heard one comment that would use the word experimental. Well, unfortunately, that word was used. There's nothing experimental about it. The answer to the question is, why is it not mandatory? Is because we can't make it mandatory because the grid isn't ready for it. We have to allow it to take this organic pathway to towns opting in along the way. And then as they do that, the grid will update. The grid will build and be ready as we go into the future. So this is something we have to do, and it's the right way to do it. That the state is doing it as allowing the towns to opt in, and then at some point it will be mandatory. But the reason it's not mandatory now is because we're not ready for it to be mandatory for the whole state. But we will be by the time towns opt in. We'll get to the point where it will be mandatory. So I hope everyone votes for it, because it's the right thing to do, and we have to do it. We just have to. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
We're gonna do 2 for 1.
Right?
I'm Garrett Federer. I live at 146 South Street, Needham. Lived in town since I was 5.
Trip Pace. I live at 99 Evelyn Road. I was born in Wellesley and I've always lived in this town.
Me too.
What we got? I would say, we both attended the meeting that was held for the building community. And we had a lot of questions and concerns around this being put in place too early. I think that there are certain parts of this town, certain lots, home properties that can handle these upgrades. And there's a lot that that can't because of the existing infrastructure. Also, it's one thing to call the options of natural gas and propane fossil fuels and then electric green, which isn't completely true. Every project we do, we are making these homes more efficient as builders. But there are going to be certain properties that can't go all electric because of the existing infrastructure. And that's our largest concern, whether it be a complete home tear down or a remodel. And it will largely affect the home values in this town, I think, for the average homeowner, not just somebody who is looking to do a major renovation, but as the code states, it would be 50% at 1,000 square feet. And if you live in a 3,000 square foot home in Needham, you want to do a kitchen, a couple baths, or a new buyer wants to come in and do those things, they'll be forced to spend a lot more on upgrading all of the utilities, possibly all new electrical, solar, maybe having to redesign the roof system. So you're now making that project out of reach for many in town or.
Chip, I'm sorry, I do want to interrupt because
Sure.
my understanding is that that's not the case. Joe, am I correct?
The opt-in code will not apply to renovations and additions. Correct.
Strictly new construction.
And it doesn't keep you from putting fossil fuel in the house. It
The
just also
current
has to be
updated stretch code does apply to additions, certain size additions and renovations, but the opt-in code will not. Just new homes and complete tear downs that would then constitute a new home.
With 4,000 square foot of conditioned space or greater. So that's what this particular specialized code applies
And
to.
it's important to note also that the opt-in specialized code doesn't prohibit you from putting fossil fuels in. It just is a balance that
So
has to be
under
struck.
4,000 square feet, you have to put, I believe it's a 6 kilowatt solar system in, 4 kilowatt solar system. Above 4,000 square feet, you have to put an 8 kilowatt solar system in. Or
If you
you,
put
or you
in-
have to make the house all electric if you want to bypass the solar.
Correct, yeah. Right.
But one thing that we've also experienced over the last couple of years is that, like, a lot of these houses, if we do an all electric house, the 200 amp service that we were putting in these houses is no longer going to apply. You're going to have to put 400 amp services in the house. And I said this to the last meeting, if I go on a supply house right now and say I want a 400 amp service for the house, they laugh at me and tell me to get on a 16-month wait list. So there's a lot of problems getting a lot of this stuff, going to what Tripp was saying about being a little early. I build tons of houses, geothermal, solar. I've had negative HERS scores below 0. I know how to do it. I love doing it, but it should be people's choice to do it. And whether they want to spend the money on it. And also, Eversource is going to charge people to upgrade their electric service on the street if it does not comply. So it's another expense that if you're in a street that the transformer has to be changed, you have to foot the bill for that too. So in the town at the meeting, I said that the town had to upgrade one somewhere, and it was in the tune of $35,000 to upgrade the transformer for, it was a town building, so it may be more expensive than a house, but it's still not like chump change. So to tell people to opt in the stretch code, now you need to change transformer, now you need to put solar in the house, now you have to wait for Eversource to do these upgrades too before you can get compliance for the house. Get 400 amp panels in the house, wait list for that. Like I said, I'm all for it, do it all the time, but to tell people they have to do it and to do it this early, I think we need to be a little bit less of a guinea pig in this one, but at least for the first year. But
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi
Stephen
there.
Frail, 29 Power Street. I am town meeting member. I'm also on the Climate Action Plan Committee, so I have a little bit of familiarity with this topic. The one thing that I think about when I think about this particular warrant article is that it's about consumer protection. And why I say consumer protection is because when you buy a house, you don't just buy what's in the house, you buy its future maintenance, you buy its future energy bills. And so what this particular bill is designed to do for new construction is to align the builder's incentives with the future homeowners. So with all due respect to the previous speakers, there's misalignment today. So because the builder does not have to pay those electricity bills, and because the builder does not have to, 25 years down the road, rip out the fossil fuel system, open the walls, put the wiring in, upgrade the panel, upgrade the transformer, at that point, it's not in their best interest, perhaps, to put all of that in now. And so what this does is it really makes sure that at the point in time when the walls are open, when it's the easiest time to put all electric in, that they consider it. That's all it does. All it does is say, you have the option of putting fossil fuels in, you can do that, but you need to wire it today so that a future homeowner doesn't have to go through that process. Now, I can tell you from personal experience, back in 1930, when the builders of our house put their house in, they didn't even think about an all-electric because it didn't exist. There was no idea around this. But we have just converted our house from fossil fuels to electric, and I can tell you, it is an enormous expense to go through that conversion. It would have been a lot cheaper if the wires were already in the house. It would have been a lot cheaper if the vents were already in the house. And so that's what this is designed to do. That's all it does. It's only new construction, as was the point was made previously. It is not renovations. It is not alterations. It's about really just aligning the incentives of the builders with the residents of those homes. So I encourage you to vote in favor of putting this before town meeting.
And I want to make sure we don't in some way misrepresent what I heard from Tripp and Garrett, which is not that they're concerned about with the wiring or building the homes on this basis, but there is concern about the interaction with Eversource is really, I think, what I'm hearing.
Even the new, regardless of the optimal stretch code, you have to wire in for solar. You have to wire for solar ready in the houses regardless of the optimal stretch code.
I have a degree in green building and community design. I'm
Okay.
very into it, but
Good.
sometimes it's not practical.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
All right. Next, Miles, do we have somebody online who I should take?
We do have one hand raised. Keith, I will.
Madam Chair, just one ask. Before anyone who spoke leaves today, we have someone out in the hallway to just have the full spelling of your name and your address for the minutes for later. So if you wouldn't mind speaking with the staff in the hallway afterwards.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank
Going
you.
to pull Keith in to comment.
Okay.
My work thing is, I hope you don't mind. Hi, everybody. How you doing?
Hi, Keith. We can barely hear you, so hold on a second while we figure out how to get the volume up a little bit.
Marianne, I don't think I've ever been told that before, so that's actually kind of nice.
Not at that. There's always a first, Keith. All right, we're still turning you up a little bit, so try again.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say thank you for giving me.
No, wrong direction.
No. Okay.
Well, that was totally quiet.
Yeah.
Totally silent.
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Very, very quiet.
Anybody? I'll try not to be too loud and obnoxious, but can you hear me? No.
Barely.
Barely. Let me see. Is this any better?
There we go. That's good.
That's better.
Yeah, good.
That's helping.
Awesome.
Go move.
Is that about right? I won't overmodulate and tear your eardrums up. I'll try to talk regular. Okay. Thank you for giving me the chance to speak here. I'm my name is Keith LaFace. I live at 504 Chestnut Street. I'm a town meeting member for Precinct D. I was a member of the Climate Action Plan Advisory Group. I'm a tech professional. I work at Dana-Farber. You can see my beautiful background here that I forgot to turn off. And my dad happens to be I like to say he's a semi-retired general contractor because we keep finding things for him to do. So I have a little knowledge, a little background knowledge of building. And I akin this to, I remember when my dad was building homes in the late 80s, early 90s. And we had heard this new technology coming out, Wi-Fi, and it was going to change everything. And why would anybody run Ethernet cable through their house if we were going to have Wi-Fi and it was going to be great and change everything? And the amount of people that I have said, God, I wish we had convinced people to run this, 100-foot or 200 feet of cable so that they would have their homes prepared for anything going into the future. When the walls are open, it's short work. And I think that, what's being asked, what's, going to be presented at town meeting is a very reasonable step in, addressing the climate crisis that we're in. And I really think that this is something that most people that I talk to think is a great idea. And they're really looking forward to having town meeting vote in favor of this. And I'm a big supporter.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Miles.
Come on up.
Miles. Just look at ourselves.
Good evening. My name's Leandra McLennan. I live at 4 Pershing Road. 11 years ago, I renovated my house to this code. I have 10 inches of insulation in the walls. I have 25 inches of insulation in the attic. There's no fossil fuel in my house. I have 200 amp service. It's a 3,500 square foot house. I have had no problem, with the electricity. And no problem with the electricity on the street. I do have 8 kilowatts of solar in my house. So 11 years ago, I did this. I don't see why we can't get more houses. The new houses going up now can't meet this requirement when I did this 11 years ago. And just as an FYI, with the super insulation and the heat pumps in my house, yes, that was an added investment. I have had zero cost for heat and electricity for the last 4 years. And any other year that I've had to pay, it's usually been $50 or $100 in March. So I look at this, may cost a little bit more upfront, but the savings over the next 50 years, lifetime of your house, in electricity and heat will more than make up for the investment that's being put in the house now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Other comments? Come on forward. And then if you'll come next, or Donna?
So I'm Donna Vello. I live at 141 Hawthorne Ave, and I am on the Green Needham Collaborative. And I am fully supportive of having the opt-in specialized code be confirmed here in Needham. So we are, I think there's 21 towns now that have already signed on to the code, including Worcester. Some big towns, big cities are doing it. And I think back to, I think it was 2009, and Jerry Wasserman was sitting here, and we were trying to get the green communities passed, and we didn't pass it. And another 10 years went by before it got passed. Thereabouts, I think it was December 2019 that it got passed. And in those interim years, we lost a lot of money because we could have been, getting grants that I know, Westwood got like $1.5 million in grants. So I'd love to see Needham be on the forefront of this. And like Leanne, I converted my almost 100-year-old house to almost no fossil fuels. I do have a big gas stove because I didn't know about induction stoves when I put that in, but it's doable. I had no electric bill for a long time. Now we have a little electric bill because we've been running the AC a bunch because it's been so hot. But I think with the technology is so much improved from when Leanne did her house, so efficient, and the insulation just, I think it's a no-brainer to do. We don't want to bring any more fossil fuels anywhere on the planet if we can avoid it because of climate change. So, thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Sir.
How's it going? My name is Connor Gillen. I live at 65 Charles River Street in town. And I just wanted to come here tonight to kind of express my concerns regarding this opt-in. While I wholeheartedly support the idea of embracing these sustainable policies, I believe that the proposed changes require a little more careful consideration. I've listened to some of the other board meetings that they've had on this topic, and it just seems like there's an insufficient amount of data that's been presented on how this is going to affect people's homes, the costs associated with renovating their homes or updating these homes to meet these codes. And I don't think that this community should be subject to kind of be, like he was saying, the guinea pig in this. I understand other communities are opting in, and I don't think that we should just be subject to that just because other people are doing it. I think it would be smart if us as a community kind of stepped back and saw the ramifications of these policies and saw how they affected homeowners, the values, the desirability to live in these areas. And, the speed at which these changes are being proposed is a little unsettling. I've spoken to a dozen plus residents about this in town, and they have no idea that these policies are, being voted on this month that have a massive effect on their homeownership. And, again, I think the well-being of our community depends on a well-planned approach that engages our residents and other local experts. And, I think we should, really just create a well-balanced and more informed decision on this before we vote on it. And, again, my opposition to these policies isn't a rejection of clean energy at all, but rather a call just for caution and responsibility and more thorough consideration. I'm committed to the well-being of our town. I've worked here for 5 years. I've lived here my whole life. And, I just believe that we can achieve these sustainability goals without jumping into this and making a rash decision just because either other people are doing it or it just seems good on paper. I encourage collaboration, open-minded dialogue among the town board, clean energy experts, and community members alike, so that we can find balanced policies that work for everybody in the community.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Come on forward.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Ed Quinlan. I'm from 100 Gay Street. I'm a town meeting member, Precinct C. I am a member of Green Needham Collaborative, and I've been working as an energy coach in Needham probably doing about 100 homes now for the past 2.5 years. I think because of what was just said, it's important to say again that this does not affect renovations or additions. I believe the previous speaker mentioned that again. This is strictly for new construction. I also want to mention that also being a retired HVAC engineer, I can tell you that when you take the money out of the gas systems that you would ordinarily put in a new house, the furnaces, the piping, all the associated costs of that, and apply it to the heat pump system, you're not going to increase the cost of construction. It's basically the same thing. A heat pump system, think of it this way, it's basically a high efficiency air conditioning system that can operate in both directions, heating and cooling. So if you looked at it, you would think you're looking at your home air conditioning system. So you're saving on the cost of gas piping, gas service costs, furnaces, exhaust vents, combustion air vents, carbon monoxide detectors, all the rest, besides all the indoor air quality issues that nobody's mentioned. Somebody said it before, it's a no-brainer. If you're building a new home, why would you bring in fossil fuels when you can do the job for the same cost with less carbon? If we're serious as a town, as a community, about looking to the future, not just for ourselves, but our kids, we would be doing a disservice to everyone by not moving forward with this opt-in specialized code. So I really strongly encourage the board to endorse it for town meeting. Thank you.
Come on forward. Hi, Patrice.
Oh, I hate these things. Okay, I'm Patrice Hagan. I've lived in town for 29 years at 27 Oak Knoll Terrace. I have heat pumps, I have solar panels, I have electric cars. Anyhow, I think it's a no-brainer. I think it's the least we can do, and the sooner we do stuff to act on climate change, the better. So just a quick, I'm on board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Comments? Anybody else online?
So right here.
Yeah. I hate this as well. James Fanning, 18 Deerfield, Needham, and I'm a contractor in town, but I mostly do renovations. And just as we adopted the stretch code, boom, they slide in amendments. And so like these amendments could kill my business. And that's what I'm saying. You shouldn't just jump into this. It's crazy. So that's the, the information, once you get into this, there's no getting out of it. So I just, think about that as well.
Maybe you can tell them why.
I was going to say, do you have an example or?
Well, because I have a job I'm doing right now, right? And the architect's all worried about it's going to go over 50%. And now the people are backing out of the job. So I'm going to lose money. I losing jobs left and right. So it's, you know what I mean? Over 1,000 square feet, people aren't going to want to do it. They're going to want to tear down their house. And now the added cost to do that is crazy. I don't know. That's just my input. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just want, so people have context, the question that James raises relates to the current existing building code that we are operating under, which is the opt-in or the stretch code, if we want to call that something different, right? That the town opted into in 2019. And when we opted in, he correctly says that we are required to take on each subsequent version. It's not true that the town could never go backwards. The town could vote to leave the stretch code or could vote to leave this specialized code if we opt in. So that remains an option. I think the question for the town is leaving, going back to something else means not having provisions for reducing the carbon in the buildings that we're building now or renovating. Okay, anybody else online?
Yes, we do have one new hand raised.
Okay.
Franklin Gold, I'm going to pull him
Hello, Franklin Gold. I live at 120 Brookside Road in Needham. We have 7 kilowatts of solar on our house with backup batteries. We drive an electric car, but for going to this new code, we've got to get serious about holding Eversource's feet to the fire in terms of the quality and the reliability of our electric service. So we ended up putting in backup batteries. Our house is currently heated by oil. There's no gas on the street. We just suffer continuous downtime in our electric service. We've had multiple times of multiple days without electricity. Eversource does a poor job of managing the trees and the dangers on the street. And when outages do come on town, we are literally the last street that they work on. And part of the problem we have is because the street ends in Wellesley, and it's a very long road. Basically, once you get a failure anywhere along the grid, there's no recovery. And so we'll go a day, 2 days or more without electricity. We can keep the house heated in the wintertime using oil, but if we were on a heat pump, we'd be out of luck very, very quickly. So the code and the stretch code is a great idea, but we've got to get a different level of service quality out of Eversource.
Franklin, can you please repeat your address for me?
Sure, 120 Brookside Road.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you for your comments. Other comments?
See, one new hand raised. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, one more hand raised on mine. Cynthia Landau. I will hold right now.
I'm muted. Sorry. Can you hear me?
There you go, Cynthia. We can hear you.
Okay. I just have a very quick question. I need clarity about this. These comments have been very interesting, but what I'm concerned about is whether this is required only, really only of new construction, or whether it's required of renovations once they get to a certain size, because I think that does make a difference. And I'm not clear from what I've heard which way it is. So if you could just answer that question, that's basically, I think I'm in favor of this, but I'd like to be sure that it's not going to affect people who are simply renovating their houses.
Cynthia, can you please give us your address for the record?
Sure. Cynthia Landau. I am a town member meeting, and I live at 57 Pine Street.
Great, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Joe. There's 2 separate issues here. Your question related to renovation relates to the existing building code that the town is operating under.
Correct. The existing building code, the existing stretch energy code does pull in certain size renovations and certain size additions. The opt-in code that's in front of you tonight is only for brand new homes, but that would include, for example, a complete tear down, a demolition of an existing home, so much that it would constitute a new home.
Of 4,000 square feet or greater?
No, either way.
Either way, okay.
The opt-in has a
that's right,
lesser
because there's
standard
a
for
less-
if you're less than 4,000 square feet and a higher standard if you're more than 6,000 square feet.
But the stretch code would prevail then if we voted this in, then this would have to be adjudicated the way the stretch code mandates. Is that right?
Cynthia, we don't really engage in a back and forth here, but yes, that's correct. If we opt into this code, then that is the building code that would be applied. That's a true statement.
Okay.
And the existing code that we are currently operating under, which does have requirements that relate to renovations of 50% or greater of the building, or I think it's 1,000 square feet
Plus,
or greater,
combined, yep.
also relate to the current code that we are already operating under.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Other comments in the room or online?
No more hands raised online.
Can I briefly amend my comment?
You can briefly amend your comment if you would like, Matt.
Thanks a lot. Interesting to hear the perspectives tonight. I was, again, Matt Lockwood, Mulaney, 20 Mayo Avenue. As I mentioned, I've been here 13 or 14 years. I'm losing track. I've been a Catholic for 54 years. I understand people, want to wait. The Catholic Church is one of the most conservative institutions in the whole world, and the Pope is on round 2 of urging us to take action on this issue. And, it's not going to be perfect, but that's not what we're called to do. We're called to take action.
Other questions or comments? Okay, if there are no more, this is not a vote item for the board tonight. This was just a public hearing to listen to the public. So I'm going to thank everybody who's come forward to provide us with comments. I think there was a question earlier. Some people referenced that they had listened to the Finance Committee meeting, and I should have noted in my earlier remarks, the Finance Committee has taken a position not in favor of this particular article. They did say that if it had come in the spring, that they would support it. I'm not sure exactly what the difference is between now and the spring, other than, I get it, one's the fall and one's the spring. But at any rate, so at this time, their position is no. And the board will have a discussion and take a position not this evening. We are closed for the public hearing tonight. We'll continue to take feedback from the public to selectboard@needhamma.gov if you have feedback over the next 2 weeks in advance of our next meetings for our consideration. We are happy to continue to hear from people with their thoughts on this as we consider whether it goes forward to town meeting and what it means for the town. I do note that town meeting, and I'm not going to get the date right off the top of my head, in the spring of 2021, brought a resolution to town meeting to ask if town meeting declared a climate emergency. I will note that the select board at the time was opposed to that, mainly because we didn't like the word emergency, but that town meeting voted overwhelmingly that they did declare an emergency here. And the instruction to the select board at the time was to ask the select board to pursue with all due haste actions that put the town in a better position for being carbon-free or carbon neutral in the future. So that has been the direction that the select board has been operating under from town meeting. Okay, thank you. Thank you everyone for your interest. We appreciate and we appreciate the input. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you. We're going to give people a second here.
This is amazing.
It's like, oh, so that's weird. What is that?
That's good.
Okay. Yeah, he's like, y'all gonna learn today. I really want to go to the bathroom.
Miles.
Miles?
Marcus is taking
Sure. I do want to thank everybody who came tonight to show that you can have civil discussions. And we look forward to having a discussion about what we have heard and learned from people as we've talked with the community. All right, the next item on our agenda this evening is the town manager's, no, leave it open. The town manager's report.
Madam Chair, do you want to wait till select board member?
We have Marcus returning. He'll be running back in a minute. We'll hold for a moment.
Brief recess, as these are voting items.
Kevin will stretch.
A lot of pages. Remember when you sat here?
I miss you.
I miss you too. It's warm in here today.
It's a perfect place for the newest person. But I'm inside, like.
Okay. 4 months.
You missed your turn sitting next to me.
I'll see the side.
All right.
Right. So, Madam Chair, the next item under the board's discussion is to take positions on warrant articles if you so choose. So if it makes sense, we'll just walk through and give a brief introduction to those that you maybe have not had presentations on yet.
Yep.
Before I start, can I just ask one question? For actual town meeting, are we proceeding as we did last time? No video presentations, but floor of town meeting presentations should the members request? Is that how we're moving forward?
I believe
that's my
I'll
understanding.
confirm with the moderator about whether presentations will just
spring.
be made or at request. Yeah.
Well,
We did that in the spring,
yeah, we
didn't
did that in the spring.
Okay.
It's just a matter of deadlines.
I've heard no, there will be no videos.
Okay,
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
You know, when we made that decision last time, I don't believe the
We're going.
moderator would
Okay.
be changing, at least I haven't heard it, so.
It's usually going over.
Okay. So the first item is appropriating for roadway improvements. This is to appropriate $205,000 for improvements to Webster Street based on the work that Eversource did on the gas work. Eversource was allowed to work in the street beyond the town's typical permit period, and in return has agreed to pay for us to pave it. And we've determined that that amount is sufficient. So we will be doing that gutter to gutter paving. The reason it's on here is that there's no current legal financial mechanism to hold these funds that are for that intended purpose. So they come into the town as a general fund receipt, and then we have to appropriate them. We've had a number of these in the last year, so this is one more, and there are more coming.
Shall we, with that, is it reasonable to say, is the board ready to take a vote and make a motion?
Yes.
So I would welcome a motion on this article.
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt Article 1.
I second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? 5-0.
Article 2 would implement the provision in the town's host community agreement that we negotiated with Boston Children's Hospital back when the zoning was adopted to allow the construction of the facility. And that was to provide $200,000 following the issuance of a building permit, and an additional $200,000 at 50% completion, and then $200,000 a year after that on or after the July 1st after occupancy. We are expecting occupancy in late 2025. And as you know, we had a presentation from the Health and Human Services folks at your last meeting, and this is another example of where there's no mechanism to hold those funds But we need to spend them for what they're intended for because it's part of the agreement we have with the hospital.
And Kate, there was a question that came up from FinCom related to, was this actually in perpetuity? I went back and read the host agreement, but if you would like to explain that.
It is in
looks like
perpetuity
it is.
unless there's another project that's funded by the hospital that the select board agrees is more of a priority. So
Okay.
if there were, a significant structure that, a partner, not the town, but a partner of the town wanted to get money from Children's and could put up something. We see none of that on the horizon, but there may be an instance in the future where you would say, well, this other item that's going to benefit us directly, which I believe we can't apply for. Is that right? I think under the over the partner code. So we have none of those projects. So unless that happens, and the safeguard is the board has to approve it.
And the host agreement, from my reading, does say, match the language of this article, which is that it's for youth health initiatives. It is not specific to youth mental health, which is how we're proposing to use it at the current time. Yes. Okay. Any other questions or discussion? We've had a presentation on this, so I would welcome a motion.
Yes. Madam Chair, I vote that the board adopt Article 2.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? 5-0. Thank you.
Under Article 3, we're looking for town meeting's approval to appropriate $30,000 for intersection improvements. This is a condition in the planning board's major site plan special permit that allowed the construction of the surgical facility by the hospital. This will correct a situation that many people have perceived is unnecessary, which is if you're coming from Newton on Kendrick Street and turning left onto I-95 128 southbound, there are 2 dedicated left lanes. And every time I go through there, somebody's in that second, the left lane on the right, trying to go straight. So this is a correction of that, and we'll be working with the state. It's really it's mostly a realigning of the signage and the paint that would go in at that intersection. We do get a number of questions about hoping this was about Kendrick and Fourth. Kendrick and Fourth is in the capital plan, and we'll be talking to you about that in that context. But this there was no mitigation required for that intersection, only for Kendrick and Third.
So Kendrick and Fourth, just so people are clear, is not in the fall. If it's in the capital plan, it'll be
It's
at
out-
another time.
It's at another time.
Yes. Okay, any other questions? Then I would welcome a motion.
Madam Chair, I move the board adopt Article 3.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? 5-0. Thank you.
Under Article 4, the board heard a presentation also from our Health and Human Services staff and volunteers about the planning for use of the opioid settlement from the stabilization fund. I don't think I need to add any more to that.
Any other questions? This is also something we had a presentation on, and we understand this issue of it's a mechanism where it needs to be applied for this purpose.
Madam Chair, I move that the select board approve Article 4.
Second.
And that we approve it for adopt.
That we adopt,
Adoption, yeah.
sorry, that we adopt Article 4.
Yes.
Second that too.
Okay. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? 5-0.
Article 5 is actually inserted by the Finance Committee, and it achieves 2 distinct objectives here requested by the Finance Department. The first is a transfer of our Geographic Information System staff from the IT department into the Engineering Department at Public Works, which is we've determined as greater synergy and efficiencies. And the second is to transfer from salaries to expenses, given the vacancies that we have existing in the Information Technology Center. As the board is aware, we're engaging with the Needham Public Schools on a study as to whether there's a reason to collaborate even more closely with them in terms of the IT structure of the entire town. And we expect that a report to be completed this year and time for us to make recommendations to you in the budget process. But in the interim, we're relying on outside consultants to help us. The schools are doing a remarkable job at helping us, Marcus Sias and his team. They're very helpful, but they are and we are relying on outside consultants to make sure it all gets done. That's not the long-term, as far as I know, the long-term plan, but there will be a recommendation to the board fairly soon.
Great. Any questions? Then I would welcome a motion on this article.
Madam Chair, I move that the board vote to adopt Article 5.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions, 5-0. Brings us to Article 6.
If I might, Madam Chair, I could do 6 and 7 together. These both relate to the MWRA assessments. The sewer assessment both of these assessments came in final version after town meeting. The final assessment for sewer is lower by $112,379, and in water, higher in the amount of $989.
This is a routine matter that comes to us often at this time of year.
Madam Chair, I move that the select board adopt Article 6 and 7.
Second that.
Second. Would ask for 7.
Oh, yeah, got it. Thanks, Kevin.
If there's nobody who wishes to separate these, I'm happy to take them as together. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? 5-0. They're both adopted or approved to bring forward. Yeah,
Recommended for adoption.
to recommend for adoption. Yes, here we are all going through. What are
motion
what are
there.
those
Sorry, I
words?
started
Yes.
with adoption.
Look what you did.
Article 8,
Article 8.
another routine article.
Another routine article. Unfortunately, this happens. We're a very large corporation, and if bills don't get sent to us, we can't legally pay them. So these are for copy services for the pandemic period. The bill came in significantly later, like a year and a half later, and it took us a long time to do the investigation and make sure this was really our bill. But the finance department has determined that the best course of action is to seek appropriation in the amount of $3,820.01.
Straightforward.
I would welcome a motion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion we accept or adopt Article 8.
Second that.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? 5-0. That brings us to the capital articles.
We can discuss these separately, but just the basic premise is the cost of vehicles is going up faster than we can get them ordered. And I'm sure if Karis were here, she would tell you how hard they're trying to get them ordered. But, there's disruptions in all the supply chains. There's vendors wanting to sell them to people who pay more and not have to pay on state contract. And now we have threats of work stoppages. So it's been a difficult time in trying to buy particular vehicles. Under the general fund cash capital, we're seeking $96,200, and this is funding the shortage required for utility van unit 712 and the swap loader packer unit 5. And then we're holding the balance would be in case there are, and we know there are, additional costs for vehicles that we haven't completed the process of ordering. So these funds will help us get those vehicles that were, and they are funded by transfers from our unexpended balances of prior articles.
Madam Chair, I move the select board adopt Article 9.
Second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? 5-0 to recommend adoption.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can't look at that June 8th, 2020 annual town meeting and not think of the remarkable outdoor event that we had on that day. That was amazing. Article 10, the sewer enterprise fund cash capital in the amount of $55,000 would provide the funds to help us purchase Unit 11, the sewer division pickup truck, and Unit 19, the heavy-duty Class 8 dump truck. This is proposed to be funded from sewer enterprise fund receipts.
Madam Chair, I make a motion, we adopt Article 10.
Second.
We recommend adoption.
Madam Chair, I move we recommend adoption for Article 10.
It's not even
And it's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? 5-0. Brings us to the Water Enterprise Fund. Which vehicle's there?
Same story. Unit 40, the Water Division utility truck replacement, and Unit 21, Water Division pickup truck replacement. Also funded by the balances of unexpended articles.
Is there a motion to recommend adoption? So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
That was the
opposed?
top
She's
rope.
tired
I
of
like that.
listening
That
to
was
us.
good.
5-0. All right, now we're up to transfer of surplus bond proceeds.
I'm going to ask Dave to take this one. And its companion. Thank you, Dave.
Good evening. The board may recall, it's a couple months ago now, more than a couple months ago, the purpose of this is the Williams School project is completed. All the bills have been paid. The state has paid its fair share. And we have a unspent balance of monies that were borrowed of $286,000. Those funds may only be used for a similar project for which the town can borrow for the same period of time as the Williams School project. And therefore, to do this, we would appropriate it to another construction project. The construction project that would qualify is the Emery Grover building project. And this will transfer $286,000 from the closed out Williams School project to the Emery Grover project. Now, additional information is because the Williams School project was approved by debt exclusion, that because we're transferring this, if acted upon favorably, to the Emery Grover project, which was not financed by a debt exclusion, what will happen is we will reduce the amount of taxes that people would have to have paid if we didn't transfer the money to the Emery Grover project by the same $286,000. The other article, Article 13, is we're not appropriating the money to the Emery Grover project because we need an additional $286,000 to complete the project. The project is still working within the appropriations that have already been approved by the town. So we are going to reduce the debt authorization by $286,000 so that the budget for the Emery Grover project is exactly the same as town meeting had previously approved. And that's the purpose of those two articles.
Okay.
It's just a source of funds at a lower cost.
Correct.
All right.
Question,
Okay.
was there a different interest rate for the Senior Williams, like when we borrowed that money?
The money, the interest rates were lower than if we were to borrow that $286,000. So not only would you be reducing the amount that the taxpayers are going to have to pay because it's not going to have to be raised, but that's $286,000 that we won't be borrowing at a higher interest rate.
Correct. Okay.
Which is a
Win-win.
win. Yeah.
Good.
I would welcome a motion for a win-win to recommend adoption.
Madam Chair, I move that the board vote to support Articles 12 and 13 in the special town meeting warrant.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? 5-0 on both. Okay. Article 14, general articles, amend general bylaws, non-criminal dispositions.
So we've talked about this a number of times.
It's our favorite.
Miles and I and town council have been through it many times. We actually created, that we'll be posting to the website, a strikeout and addition version of the bylaw to show all the changes. So we have, in that process, I think we've caught all of the mistakes and we've cleaned up the language. And I think having spent a lot of time with the old version in the last 2 weeks, the new version is so much better because in the old version, it was numbered from A to V and like with V4 and things were just added serially. So they didn't match the text or the flow of the bylaw. So if you were looking for what the fine was maybe for the improper use of a burglar alarm, you just had to read every word. So this chart is so much better. Credit Miles and Chris Heap for creating it. And I think we're ready for getting this finally done.
We appreciate all the hard work that has really gone into this one, and I know it's had a lot of eyes because it's mind-numbing to some extent to see all these pieces. So I would welcome a motion on this article.
Madam Chair, I recommend adoption of Article 14.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? 5-0. And I know that Miles will be so glad.
Madam Chair, the board is going to take a position on Article 15 at your next meeting, is my understanding?
Correct.
Okay, which leaves us with Article 16, the non-binding resolution on the Foster property open space zoning concept. As the board has discussed on many occasions, the purpose of the article is to seek the opinion of town meeting as to whether we should pursue a zoning option and bring it back to town meeting. A no vote would be we don't pursue the zoning and it remains in its single residence A status. A yes vote would mean we would work with the planning board through the normal process and bring back to town meeting a concept similar to what has been expressed here for their consideration again at a future town meeting.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions?
I just wanted to say with this one, maybe Madam Chair, I don't think we need an in-depth kind of difference. And I know Kate just kind of gave one, but just the benefit of doing this, just for the people that are watching, just a little bit more so they understand, why we want to do this and why it makes sense.
So town meeting in, where are we, 2023, so in
October of 22.
22, a year ago, approved the town to move forward with $2.5 million for the purpose of obtaining 34 acres of open space, contingent upon a developer having the right under a local initiative program to build a 70-unit clustered development on 14 acres of property surrounded by 14 acres of buffer. That's in addition to the 34 acres of open space for the town, all right? But, and that concept could be implemented in that place. And it would have had 5% affordable units or 4 affordable units in it. Although the town and the developer had worked with DHCD, which is now
Executive
EO,
Office of
LHC.
Yeah.
HLC, yeah. To be clear that this could happen at the time. In April of this year, which was long after the town meeting vote, we were informed that in fact, despite the fact that 25% affordable units was practice only and not a requirement of law, that they were in fact going to require 25% affordable units in this development. That rendered a development that was not economically viable with 25% units, or if it had 25% units, it would have needed to have more market-based units in it. So at any rate, so we were back at a drawing board trying to figure out how else this might be pursued. Pursuing it through zoning is another possible way to continue with, again, the direction. We're checking to see if it was the intent of town meeting that we continue to pursue this open space. So that's what we're checking in about at this point, through another alternative.
Absolutely. I just think that was just good to kind of have just a kind
All
of
that
spark
again,
notes. Yeah.
yes. Any other comments on Foster?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The project's at a crossroads, and I think it's sort of to check in with town meeting seems very pro-democracy to sort of get a read on how they feel, and I think we should pursue it. And I think it's great that we're asking town meeting.
Yeah, and if I could just add, I think that this has been characterized as an unusual step, but it's important to note that there is no other way to check in with town meeting. Right, there's no other way. And we feel like since the outlines of the project have changed, and it has been a year, that it's respectful of the appropriation that town meeting made and the approval of the project that they gave to just reconfirm that they're still in it. So I think it's a very respectful, it's intended to be a very respectful, non-binding article.
That is the intention. Absolutely.
Right. That would result in a public zoning process.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Which they would still have a chance to vote for or against later.
Correct.
Depending on the
Right.
details. When the details are available, they would get to vote on that. It's not
Right.
a done deal.
And we do need to be careful. The details of the project remain unchanged at the current time from what we brought to town meeting a year ago. We're still talking about 70 units at 5% on 14 acres with 14 acres of buffer with the resulting 34 acres to come to the town for open space. Okay. If there are no more comments, I would welcome a motion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that the board recommend adoption of Article 16.
Second that.
Any further comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? 5-0. Which brings us to the end of the warrant, and we will come back at our next meeting and talk about specialized energy code based on the feedback we got.
We have licensing
Consent
schedule.
agenda.
Consent and the licensing.
Yep.
However, before we do that, can I move the consent calendar and appointments?
Second.
Yeah, I almost ended the meeting.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0.
Next item, Madam Chair, Miles had brought forward a proposal at your last meeting to set the on-premise, off-premise, and miscellaneous license and permit fees, which remain unchanged from the prior year. Seek your approval of that change, of that adoption. of
An
no
adoption
change.
that hasn't changed.
Any discussion? Any questions? If there are none, then I would welcome a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the board vote to approve the calendar year 2024 Select Board licensing fee schedule.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? 5-0. And then,
I just had one quick update, Madam Chair. During the process in the capital plan and leading up to town meeting, the select board had asked us to revisit the acquisition of SUVs for the 5 vehicles that were being replaced in that general category. And I will report that of the 5, we are actively pursuing 1 SUV plug-in hybrid and 4 all-electric Chevy Bolts. So we are moving towards, we've worked out with the departments and with the uses and frankly, the availability of these vehicles. And so we're starting to move in that direction.
Excellent news. Thank you.
it occurs to me when we were talking about Foster, we should mention for people that we are planning a walk.
For town meeting members?
For town meeting members?
We'll be letting them know.
Okay. And so we will be letting town meeting members know when that walk will be available for people who have not yet had a chance to be out on the property. And I have talked to town meeting members who have told me they haven't been there yet, so we'll create a new opportunity.
We'll get that out this week.
Okay. That brings us next to committee reports.
Madam Chair. The Hone Committee has met again. We had a really good, productive meeting the other day with a fantastic presentation from our consultants and a very lively discussion from the committee about what to bring and how to bring it to the public forum that's planned for Wednesday. Oh, I have the wrong date here. November 9th. Thursday, November 9th.
You tried.
Sorry, don't know where that came from. Which will take place in Powers Hall. I really hope that the public will come. This public forum was noted in the postcard that was sent to every household in Needham. So hopefully everyone has got it marked on their calendars. There's going to be some really spectacular presentations, not only of what the MBTA communities is comprised of, the act is comprised of, and how it may affect Needham, and what our current zoning allows, and what the housing plan recommends, but also the give and take that's inherent in the different levers that will affect how we decide to implement the zoning. So I invite you all there. It's going to be a terrific evening.
Thank you.
Do you want to talk about the flood meeting?
Yeah.
Thank you to Kevin for doing the vast majority of the flood meetings so far.
We did a number of flood meetings with the neighbors and neighborhood groups, which got flooded out by the August rainstorm. And they were positive, they're productive, but there's also a lot of frustration too. I mean, it's hard to see the amount of, there's still the flood lines. You see where the electrical boxes or the ACs got flooded. And then some were showing us how refortifying the homes. But it really was, it was unique. Each site was unique to, like, everyone had a different story about where the rain came. The upshot is the sewer system was intact, didn't get breached. Everything drained within about an hour to 2 hours. So the system worked, but the problem is the hydrology as the water moves across the neighborhood really affected people. With climate change, these storms will be more common, and this will happen again. So the town is looking to work on the master plan and engineer solutions that will help. But again, the reality is you cannot plan or design for a 1,000-year storm, as they call it. So, but so much of this is in the fine margins. If you have an inch of space, then you don't get flooded. If you go over by that, then you're ruined. So it's interesting to see, each site works. But it was really good to meet all the neighbors, and they were so respectful, and I really appreciate how upset they were now.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Yeah, it was not easy, and it was interesting because Karis Lustig will say, really in an instance like this, the town would need to build more storage capacity because it will drain, right? You can't build drainage capacity to meet that volume, but storage, the answer is we really can't possibly build enough storage. I mean, I know in the place that I was standing, I was looking at water that went out 6 houses in one direction and 3 houses in another. There's not a big enough tank you could fill to hold all that water in that moment. It's also clear from talking with some of the neighbors that the challenge of all the rain we've had this year and the very high water table compounds the challenge in this moment with what happens with that water. So it was very interesting to hear and see the stories and understand what happens in these many. We are a town that, although we say a lot of the hills were dug out and went to fill in, right, the Back Bay, the answer is there's quite a few hills left. And we find these little pockets of low spots dotted all over town. And the low spots were definitely found in the moment in August.
And to add to that, just to be fair, many people observed August 8th was one thing, but they are noticing that there is more flooding, not catastrophic flood, but more flooding over the last decade.
Right.
And that's case by case. Some of it is they wonder, is it larger houses? But larger houses actually collect their own runoff.
Some of them.
Some. Yeah, the newer ones. But as they all observed that there were fewer trees.
Yeah.
And you could look at a neighborhood and go like, it's bare, 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 all the way down to like 6, 7 houses until you see a tree. And that's not the solution, but it's part of the solution. And
one neighbor had planted pine trees in their yard because
Yes.
they're good. I would also add that the Department of Public Works is committing to creating a dashboard of sorts that would have all of the improvements that we're talking about making so that we can be held accountable, so that people can follow along. And that was one of the things they felt that, they really wanted to be able to know what would be happening, what is happening. So we will be working on that over the next couple of months.
So, and I do want to say thank you to Karis and her staff, to the town engineer, the assistant engineer, to our water supervisor, everybody came out to come, the building inspectors, as we looked at properties, as we looked at buildings, talked about how buildings might be hardened, talked about what might happen in particular places, where there are short-term things, what might be longer-term things, and then letting people know that there would need to be a prioritizing process that will be captured on this dashboard.
DPW did a great job. Karis doesn't fight us in the voice anymore, but Shane was great, Tom was great. Justin.
It was a big presence.
Yeah, it was. And I think people would like that. It looked like it was a lot of respect.
It was really great to meet the people, like you said.
Yeah. Good. All right. Anything else? I feel like I've been on the phone all the time since our last meeting, so I'm thinking, what other topics have I been on the phone about? We do have a quiet zone meeting coming up, but we'll talk about that as our next meeting and provide the public with an update on that work. Okay. If there's nothing further, I would welcome, I know Kevin thinks it's way too early to be considering this. We could leave him here, but I would welcome a motion to adjourn.
And to leave him here. I'm down with
No, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 4-1. Kevin's going to stay, the rest of us will leave. Thank you.